Join me today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where I talk about what's been going on in the MLB and how it affects your fantasy baseball team heading into 2024.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, riding solo today. Matt's got the day off. We'll be back with those way too early position previews tomorrow, but until then, you just got me. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. It helps to grow the podcast, and it's just a huge help to us. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit the little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel and also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And real quick, before we get into things today, guys, I got to talk to you about FanDuel, who is today's sponsor. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started today. And all right, guys, as we get into today's episode, we're talking about some signings. We got a couple of signings on the board already. We're going to talk about those. Then we got some rumors. We're going to talk about some trade rumors. And then we got a couple of trades that have actually happened already. So let's start with one that's fresh right on the board. Literally happened today as I was about to record this, and I was super happy that I get to talk about it here with you guys. Let's talk about Sonny Gray. Heads to the Cardinals, 3 years, $75 million. That's $25 million a year. And that rotation is starting to look a little bit better now. They have another big signing that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I'm not going to go through that whole rotation right now. When we talk about the next guy, we'll go through their rotation and see how that thing's looking. But for Sonny Gray, really strong year last season in Minnesota. Wins weren't great at 8 wins, 8 losses, 2.79 ERA across 32 starts, 184 innings, 183 strikeouts, a 1.14 whip, and his FIP was a 2.83. That's fielding independent pitching, which is an ERA indicator. So he was pretty much spot on. Well-deserved low ERA for Sonny Gray. But let's even talk about since 2019 how good Sonny Gray's been. 39 wins, 33 losses. 3.22 ERA for Sonny Gray. Once again, 2019 to 2023 here. It's 124 starts, 670 innings, 732 strikeouts with a 1.14 whip. This guy's been fantastic. When we look at ADP so far, once again, if you guys haven't been watching, I've been using NFBC ADP. Which has, they've done, it looks like 42 drafts so far. If you're not familiar with NFBC, it's the National Fantasy Baseball Championship. It's where a lot of the heavy hitters play. They have all sorts of different kinds of leagues on there, but it's most well known for being a platform where a lot of the experts play, and they got some ADP for us, so we're going to use that. Sonny Gray is the 58th overall pitcher off the board, which includes some closers in there as well. So I'm going to assume there's about 15 closers in there, so you're looking about 43rd starting pitcher for Sonny Gray, pick 133, and I absolutely love that because I actually have Sonny Gray as pitcher number 5. No, not 5. Definitely not number 5. Number 25. So with that being said, high-end starting pitcher 3 for me in your 12-man leagues. Very, very low end 2. I just think he's so consistent. When you know what you're getting, you know you're going to get a pretty strong ERA. I think at worst, he's like a mid-3s ERA with very close to a strikeout per 9. He's shown potential of doing over a K per 9 quite a few times in his career, so that's not out of the question either. The whip's been very good, 3 out of the last 4 years, so I think Sonny Gray in his older age, he's going to be 34 next season, has just figured it out, and I think he's going to be good until the wheels fall off, and I'm thinking there's at least one more good season in there. I think he's going to be good with those St. Louis Cardinals. Let's keep things pushing here, and now we can get into this rotation. Actually, let's talk about another Cardinal signing. Let's talk about Lance Lynn. Maybe not as enthusiastic about this one. Lynn gets $11 million for 1 year from those same Cardinals. Lynn was just really, really bad last year. He started off the year hurt, not last year, but 2 years ago. Took a while for him to get it going, but he had a very, very good second half in 2022. All of 2023 was just miserable for Lynn, even when he went over to the Dodgers. The season total is 13 wins, 11 losses for Lynn last year, 5.73 ERA, 32 starts, 183 innings, 191 strikeouts with a 1.39 whip. 37 years old for Lance Lynn coming up. I think there's upside here. I'm sure he's buried when we're talking about ADP for next season. I know how I have Lynn buried in my rankings. I have Lynn as my starting pitcher. I believe was 85. And I'm scrolling here. Lance Lynn, ADP, 127th pitcher off the board, which once again includes closers and relievers. Pick 355. I mean, if you want to throw that dart last pick of your draft where it looks like you're going to be getting him in most leagues, I'm not mad at that. There's strikeout upside. The ERA, I mean, it had been good for, a long time. Lynn's a career 3.74 ERA guy. So once again, there's bounce back potential here. As your last pick, you could definitely do worse. But if that's the going price for Lance Lynn, I'm actually not mad at it because I have him a decent amount higher than that. Almost, I would say like maybe 20 starting pitcher spots higher than ADP. So, we could take our chances on Lance Lynn. Just be prepared for, a season like this. But once again, you're not paying anything for him. So, there's definitely a chance for some solid production. Let's move on to the biggest signing so far, this offseason, and it's a re-signing, actually. It's Aaron Nola. Heads back to the Phillies. We haven't talked about it here yet. I know it happened a little while ago, but I just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on it. Nola gets 7 years, $172 million. That works out to $24.5 million per year, which is very, very nice for Aaron Nola. Now, we've talked about Aaron Nola on this podcast quite a bit. Just once again, haven't talked about him going back to Philly. I actually kind of don't want to pat myself on the back, but I did predict the Sonny Gray going to the Cardinals. If you go back and listen to my free agent episode, and I did say Nola back to the Phillies. I did throw out a Dodgers caveat on that one, but I did call the Nola one as well. So I'm doing pretty good so far with my calls from that episode. Aaron Nola, it's just a curious case. If he doesn't give up a lot of home runs and, doesn't give up, a crazy amount of hits, he's usually pretty good. He has the every other year ERA going on since, 2017 pretty much. But I think there's high upside. There's SP1 upside. 193 innings this year for Nola with 202 strikeouts, and the whip was pretty strong too at a 1.15. The 4.46 ERA and 12 wins is what killed you there. But I have Nola ranked high. I might have him ranked too high. That's why, I like to come here early in the season, talk things out, and kind of see, why we do things the way we do when it comes to rankings and, things like that. So we're kind of deep diving together here. I have Nola ranked at number 10 when it comes to starting pitcher, which is an SP1. Now, he can do that because let's even go back to 2022. 32 starts, 3.25 ERA, 205 innings, 235 strikeouts, and 0.96 whip. That's SP1. But with Nola, you're always, rolling the dice with that. You could always get that high ERA, but I think there is, a ground. A ground is the, 180 innings, 200 plus strikeouts with a pretty strong whip. Right now, Nola's coming off the board. ADP, 17th pitcher overall. Looks like there's about 4 or 5 closers in front of him there with an NFBC ADP so far. So it looks like maybe SP12 for Nola. Pick 57. I'm okay with that. I think we all know what Aaron Nola can be and his upside. but it just always comes with that heavy, caveat of the ERA could be a 4.46 like it was this past season. But we pretty much have a good idea. It's just the upside. The upside's very high for Aaron Nola, but once again, we kind of know what his base is. With that being said, before we move on, I have one more signing. Then we're going to talk trade rumors. And then after that, once again, we're going to talk about some trades that already have happened. But before that, I do have a quick ad for you guys. And guys, of course, we are talking about FanDuel today. And, Matt and I love FanDuel. We're users. We got to get out there, with the NFL season being here. So score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season right. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, guys, so we're going to get back into things here. Thanks for bearing with me. But actually, real quick, I do have one more thing, guys. I'm sorry about that. I need to talk to you about Locked On, the network as a whole. They've officially launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts from all of our Locked On national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Matt and I are on there too with our new episodes, so make sure you check that out. But all right, let's get back into the nitty-gritty here. This one isn't as big, so I'll keep it short and sweet. We're going to talk about Kenta Maeda. He goes over to the Tigers, gets 2 years, $24 million, $12 million a year. Kenta Maeda is just pretty solid. He's not great. He's not going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, but get him in the middle of your rotation somewhere. I think he's going to be decent. Another guy that's getting a little older. He's going to be 36. He goes to, once again, Detroit Tigers. Good landing spot. Very, very good park when you're talking about pitchers. As far as park factor goes, it was the 25th best hitter park. So you're talking about it translates to a good pitching park. With Maeda, though, last year, 6 wins, 8 losses, 4.23 ERA, 20 starts, 104 innings, 117 strikeouts, and the whip was a 1.16. Maeda's always been a very good control guy. I think playing in Detroit, that ERA can come back down a little bit. I say closer to his career norm, which is a 3.92, but I think it could be even better than that. I think you're talking about a guy in Maeda that could have that like a 3.6 ERA, over that K per 9 with a very good whip. And honestly, I guarantee he's really not going for anything right now when we're talking about ADP for next year. This is a guy, once again, you're going to get around that Lance Lynn range, I'm thinking. And it's just a dart. It's just remember that he went to, a good ballpark to pitch in. Maybe not a great team for wins, but we know who Maeda is. He can strike guys out. The whip is going to be good. He's not going to be, very healthy. And as I scroll here, you're talking about, once again, this is a guy you're going to be able to get with most likely your last pick. Just wanted to bring up the name and let you guys know he has changed teams. Now, let's run that rumor mill. Let's get into the rumors. Let's get into what's going on. Big impact stuff, and let's start with one of the biggest names in all of baseball. Let's talk about Juan Soto. Now, a lot of rumors floating around about there that San Diego needs to cut some of that money that they have there. They don't want to give out a big contract to Tatis, Soto, and anybody else, especially after they just paid Machado. They don't really have the money like that. Doesn't seem like this, experiment's working out. With Soto, Tatis, and Machado, it's a shame because you got, 3 of the best players in baseball, and, they really didn't make any noise at all last year. Juan Soto, strong year last year. I would call it a bounce back year for sure. 162 games for Soto, played every game, 568 at-bats, 97 runs, 32 doubles, a triple, 35 homers, 109 RBIs, 12 steals, 132 walks to 129 strikeouts. Very Juan Soto-ish of him. 275 batting average. And I think if I asked a lot of people how old Juan Soto is, they'd say like, oh, 26, 27. He's only going to be 25 next year. Still very young for Juan Soto. I have Juan Soto as my 10th outfielder going into next year. I wouldn't be mad if you said you got him a little bit higher. I do want to pull up that NFBC ADP and kind of just see where he's going. Let's just sort it by all players to kind of give us an idea if he's going outside that first round, and he is. Even in a 15-man league, Juan Soto goes pick 16, high-end second-round talent. I'm happy with that. He's just not going to give you the steals, so you got to supplement those steals somewhere else. He's going to be elite at everything else, though, and no matter where he goes, honestly. And when we're talking about the rumor mill, the two teams that I saw that I think make the most sense are the Baltimore Orioles. Because if he goes over to that, I want that Baltimore Orioles to get, a nice super veteran superstar player to throw out there with all of these young guys. And they could even trade, 2, 3 of these young guys and still have a whole bunch left. If you watch the show at all, you know all those names in that Baltimore farm system because we talk about them all the time. The Westbergs, the Norbies, there's so many of them. The Heston Kjerstads. I could go on all day. Even the Jackson Holiday types. I don't think they're going to give him up, but that just shows how deep that farm system is. And if you just insert Juan Soto into the middle of that lineup, they have the room there. They can move some guys around. Austin Hayes is decent, but obviously you could throw Juan Soto in that lineup. It's a different monster. I just think it works for both teams. The Padres would love to have some good young talent into that farm system to go along with the Jackson Merrills and the rest of those boys in that farm system. They could always throw a couple more in there. And where Baltimore could sacrifice them, they're in a win now, phase happened a lot faster than any of us thought. So I think they're in the Baltimore's in the market to get themselves a high-end starting pitcher and another high-end bat. And I think the move for Juan Soto could be one. Another team in the mix, I think, for Juan Soto that makes a lot of sense is Seattle. Get him there, pair him with the young superstar Julio, let him show Julio the way. They definitely need another big bat in that lineup. They just lost a player that we're going to talk about later in this episode, time permitting. But they have some decent minor leaguers down there too. But they'd have to give up the Harry Ford types. They'd have to give up guys like that. The Ryan Blyce of the world to get a Juan Soto, and even more, they might even have to give up one of their big name starting pitchers, which they have a few of. You could trade, a Bryce Miller or throw a Logan Gilbert into that type of trade to get you that kind of bat, which puts you in a win now situation. And with that being said, I think no matter Juan Soto winds up, once again, high-end player, top, in my opinion, top 15 type guy. He's back. There's going to be another season where Juan Soto hits over 300 with 30-plus homers, 100 runs, 100 RBIs, still chips in, 10 steals for the most part. In those points leagues, he goes up even higher because of the great walk-to-strikeout ratio, usually leads the league in walks. If not, he's always right up there, and he's still only 25. Let's get into another starting pitcher here. Very starting pitcher heavy episode today. But let's talk about Tyler Glasnow. Another guy that seems like he's going to be on the move. The Rays don't really want to pay the rest of that money to him. I think he's got $25 million for next year and or for this year. And I don't know how much, once again, the Rays want to pay that money to him, especially I think the Rays are going to be more out of it this year than we think. And Glasnow is going to be 30 years old, a little bit older than you think. When I was talking about how Soto is younger than you think, Glasnow is probably a little older than you think because guys never really pitched a full season. So he's just been such a tease, seeing the talent with Glasnow, but never putting it together for, more than 120 innings, which actually was his high last year, high for his career, which he did last year. Last year, Glasnow, 10 wins, 7 losses, 3.53 ERA, 21 starts, 120 innings, 162 strikeouts with a 108 whip. If Glasnow puts it together for a whole season, I mean, we're going to be in luck, and it's going to be fantastic. And I think, honestly, is SP1 if he does it. It's the injuries that really hold, Glasnow back from, being that high-end talent that we all know he has. Let's go to ADP so far with him, with Glasnow. He actually looks like he's coming off the board a little bit later than I would have thought. No, actually not. I scrolled past him. Let's try pitcher 14 overall for Glasnow, and it looks like you have 4. Wow, this is crazy. 4 closers ahead of him. So SP10, according to ADP for Glasnow so far. I don't have Glasnow necessarily that high. I have Glasnow. Well, I actually do have him fairly high. SP12. He really deserves the SP1 title. He just has to give us the innings. If he could give you those innings, he's going to do it. I think we're at pick 48 once again, SP10, according to ADP so far. It's going to be tough, but if it pays off, it's amazing. I just don't think he's going to be a guy that I'm targeting. I know the talent's there, and I do rank him high, but I'm probably just not going to take that leap on him. If I could get him as my SP2, I'd be thrilled. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, though. So with Glasnow, I'm not going to be mad if you take him. Just understand it's a huge risk. And then when it comes to your SP2, you're probably going to want to lean somebody that's a little bit more of a sure thing. Maybe like, a Max Fried, or, it's starting pitching so tough this year. There's not really that many sure things, or you go even maybe with like a, it just gets so shaky. I'm trying to throw out a Logan Webb that you really know what you're going to get. Kind of matches. Logan Webb's not going to, not over a K per 9 guy, but Glasnow is way over that K per 9. You compare 2 guys like that together. But yeah, with Glasnow, it's the best I got for you guys. It's just more of a, if you want to do it type of thing, I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to fault you for that. But I'm not going to be in the market for, Glasnow as my SP1. I probably even might move him down a couple of slots just to get him out of that 12 number so he's not an SP1 in my ranks. Let's move on to one of my favorite pitchers in all of baseball. Let's talk about Corbin Burnes. Now, Corbin Burnes took a little bit of a step back this year, but it looks like the way things are going over there in Milwaukee that they're kind of just going to clean house. I wouldn't be surprised if Yelich moves. Brandon Woodruff is pretty much going to be out for the whole season. If anything, he's going to make a little cameo at the end of the season. Looks like they've gave up on Woodruff though as well. But let's talk about Corbin Burnes. Age 28 season, 10 wins, 8 losses, a 3.39 ERA, 32 starts, 193 innings, 200 strikeouts, and a 106 WHIP for Corbin Burnes. On the whole, very good season for Burnes. There was a lot of bad starts mixed in, so he was a lot of peaks and valleys type season for Burnes. But once again, just kind of looks like that relationship is, fractured. Craig Counsell leaves, got a lot of guys in the clubhouse upset. And I think Burnes is ready to move on. I think Milwaukee's ready to move on. With that being said, I think the best landing spot for Corbin Burnes is going to be in that Dodgers rotation, right? The Dodgers, they lose Julio Urias. We don't know what the official word is on Urias, but I can guarantee he's not going to be around for most of the season. And then you just really have, do they re-sign Kershaw? Another guy's going to be out most of the year, even if they do re-sign him. So to start the year, if Walker Buehler's healthy, which we think he's going to be, it's going to look something like Buehler, Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepiot, maybe Ryan Yurbo. That's what I see here on Roster Resource. Emmett Sheehan. They also have Gavin Stone. So you got a couple of names there, but they're all young. They can really use another guy beside Buehler, especially because who knows how many innings Buehler's going to be able to throw this year coming off of Tommy John. You get a horse like Corbin Burnes in there, and, he's going to be excited. He's going to be revamped. I think that, puts Corbin Burnes, right back into the top argument for top starting pitcher to come off the board. If he goes to the Dodgers, this could be a huge, landing spot for Burnes, where the wins could go from, what did I say? He won 10 games this season. The wins could go from 10 to, a career high, maybe like 16, 17 wins for Burnes. Let's check out the park factor. Milwaukee, it looks like Milwaukee was, let's see where it landed on this list. It landed actually at 24. So the Dodgers are at 19 when it comes to park factor. So, a little bit worse park to pitch in for Corbin Burnes, but I think he'll be more motivated and, figure it out and get it going there on a new team. And age 29 for Corbin Burnes, still right in his prime. Really like the outlook for him. So that's all the rumors, guys. Let's get into some more concrete stuff that's already happened. Let's talk about one of the trades that have happened. Eugenio Suarez goes over to, not the World Series champion, but they made it to the World Series, those Diamondbacks. I think that's a good move for them. Get another thumper in the middle of that lineup with Christian Walker. Suarez isn't super far removed from, hitting 271 in 2019 with 49 homers. I know it's the juiced ball year, but, Eugenio Suarez, even in 2021, 2022, at 31 home runs, both of those years. And he hit 286 in 20. No, he didn't hit 286. I'm sorry, I was looking at the OBP. He hasn't had a good batting average, like I said, since 2019, but, a career 248 guy. If Suarez can go over to those Diamondbacks and hit 250 with 30 plus homers, 100 RBIs, and, would you say like 75 runs? That's not a bad season for Suarez. I want to see where he's going. Let's filter this by. Let's see if we can get the last week's ADP here. So we're going to go from November 20th through the 27th, which is when I'm recording. And we're going to sort by third base. And let's see where Suarez is. Let's see if that ADP has creeped up here at all. 24 third baseman off the board, pick 270. And then if we go back to, let's just do the start of November. Let's see if he's moved up at all. Knowing that he's on a new team, I have a feeling, it's pretty much the same. The ADP went up a little bit because it was pick 282 before the trade for Eugenio Suarez. But I think it's a good move. As for fantasy, not huge change. Let's see where I have him ranked. I have him as my 19th third baseman. I think that's pretty much spot on. Going to be a good corner, corner infielder for, fantasy going into next season. Obviously not drafting him as your starting third baseman anymore, but there's upside here. I like Suarez, a guy that I might have on the bench or corner infield on some of my fantasy teams for next season. Let's move on. Got a couple of more starting pitchers here before we finish things up. I want to talk about two former Braves starting pitchers here. I'll do them one at a time, though. Let's talk about Mike Soroka. Not super fantasy relevant, but he moves on from that Braves rotation, and he heads over to the White Sox. And just interesting to see the, trajectory that Soroka's, career has, taken. Had a super, super promising, 2019 where all of us thought, this kid has upside to be like, top 24, top 30 type starting pitcher. And, the injury bug has, taken him out with a multitude of different injuries. Soroka did pitch 6 starts, 7 games overall in the majors last year, but it was, to the tune of a 6.40 ERA, 32 innings, 29 strikeouts, and a 1.48 WHIP. Mike Soroka is still only going to be 26 next season. Let's see if those White Sox can work with him and, figure out what went wrong last year and how to get him back to that dominant starting pitcher that we all know is in there. Honestly, this is going to be a guy that I feel like you're going to just be able to get last pick of your draft. If you want to throw the dart in that direction, you totally can. Maybe not going to be something I do, but in those deep leagues, Soroka's a name to keep an eye on. Honestly, in any fantasy league, I think it's when you finish your draft and you go right into the waiver wire and you're doing your watch list. Soroka should be one of those names you throw on there. So every time you go back into the watch list, you check up on him, see how those stats look. If you're listening to, us, Matt and I on Locked On Fantasy Baseball, we'll keep you, locked on how Soroka's doing because that's one of Matt's favorite guys. But, not really much fantasy relevant there. Just a name to keep an eye on and see what happens next season. Hopefully, Soroka can figure some things out and become fantasy relevant again. The last two names I have for you here are guys that aren't really going to pitch this season for the most part, but just names to keep your eye on for next year or for 2025 and going forward. Kyle Wright is that other Braves starting pitcher that leaves and goes from the Braves to the Royals. Interesting landing spot for Kyle Wright. He's not going to pitch this whole season. He's out. I believe he got shoulder surgery. It's going to keep him out for at least this whole season. Kyle Wright, another starting pitcher that had promise, had a very bad year. Kyle Wright this past season, 6.97 ERA. 7 starts, 31 innings, 34 strikeouts, a 1.83 whip. Hopefully Kyle Wright can, ever get back to that monster 2022 season. I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Might just be an outlier year, but, a name to keep your eye on for fantasy going forward, for all of those dynasty leagues and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm dropping Kyle Wright. I mean, you probably could. I wouldn't be mad at it. We should see him again. He'll be 29 years old. So, you know what? Yeah, honestly, I'm not mad. If you can't trade him for anything, probably a safe drop there. But before we wrap things up here, there is one guy that I did tease a little bit. I kind of want to just talk about him now, and it's Brandon Woodruff from the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, he got non-tendered. So, I think his time in Milwaukee is pretty much done. We'll see how things go. I just think it's over for him in Milwaukee. I really don't think we see him back there. I think he's going to wind up on a contender. If he winds up on one of these really good teams, he's still a stash. This is a guy in Dynasty that I'm probably going to try and acquire because I think there's, ace potential with Brandon Woodruff, but not really too much to talk about except that we're probably not going to see him in that Milwaukee Brewers uniform again. Buy as low as you can in dynasty leagues on Brandon Woodruff because I think after this season he comes back and hopefully he can get back to normal. He's a little bit older though. I mean, he is going to be 31, 32 next time we see him. But if you can get him on the cheap, you might as well do it. Guys, that is all for today. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review if you haven't already. And shout out to you, all the everydayers and new listeners. It means so much to have you guys here listening with us every single day. Appreciate all of you. But guys, until next time, see you.